The Sarlacc pit, located on the desert planet of Tatooine, is one of the most infamous locations in the Star Wars universe. It was here that Boba Fett, the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter, was seemingly sent to his death in Return of the Jedi. After a series of chaotic events at Jabba the Hutt's palace, Fett, who had been trapped in the pit by Han Solo's accidental action and then swallowed by the Sarlacc, appeared to meet a grim fate. The Sarlacc was known for its digestive process, which would slowly dissolve its prey over a period of 1,000 years, a fate that would leave no room for escape. However, in The Mandalorian and later in the book of Boba Fett is shown to have not only survived, but also to have emerged from the pit with revenge and a deeper sense of purpose. But how did he survive? The canon explanation, particularly in the series, gives us a brief glimpse into Fett's escape, but much of the mystery remains, which has led to numerous speculative theories. To fully understand how Boba Fett managed to survive the Sarlacc pit, we must consider the surrounding conditions of the pit, Fett's own capabilities, and the possible involvement of technology or other unexamined elements in the pit's biological system. The mystery surrounding his survival invites us to explore the many facets of his character, skills, and the environment that helped him break free. But it also opens up numerous possibilities that may have contributed to the true reason behind his ability to escape such a deadly fate. First, let us consider the environment of the Sarlacc pit itself. The Sarlacc, a massive, tentacled creature, was designed to trap, immobilize, and digest its prey over an extremely slow process. Its digestion was known to take centuries, and its ability to render its victims incapable of escape was practically legendary. Its digestive tract, and the manner in which it captured victims, involved the creature's long, flexible tentacles that could reach out to ensnare beings, dragging them into the pit where they were swallowed whole. Once inside, the prey would be incapacitated by a mix of paralytic venom and the sheer pressure exerted by the Sarlacc's internal organs. The victim's struggle would be futile, as they would be subjected to slow digestion, their bodies gradually liquefied in the Sarlacc's acidic stomach, leaving behind nothing more than bones. But this raises an interesting question about Boba Fett's survival. Boba Fett, unlike his usual quarry, was not a helpless victim. He was a trained warrior, an expert in surviving harsh conditions, and skilled in using his Mandalorian technology to fight and outsmart foes much stronger than himself. In fact, the very technology that made Boba Fett so dangerous, his iconic Mandalorian armor, was likely key to his survival. The armor itself, made from Beskar, a rare and nearly indestructible metal, is known to withstand blaster fire, explosive blasts, and even lightsaber strikes. Could it have been the armor that protected him from the Sarlacc's digestive process? Given the nature of the Sarlacc, it seems reasonable that the armor may have shielded Boba Fett from the Sarlacc's internal acidic environment. Beskar is highly resistant to corrosion and damage, meaning that Boba Fett's armor would have withstood the effects of the acidic digestive process far longer than any other material could. The internal pressure inside the Sarlacc could have posed a challenge, but Fett's helmet and jetpack may have provided him with enough room to move and breathe while waiting for the right opportunity to escape. Importantly, the Beskar armor also gave him a level of protection that might have kept the Sarlacc's paralyzing venom from taking full effect. Fett was used to operating under extreme conditions, and his training as a Mandalorian warrior taught him to survive where others might perish. But technology alone does not explain how Fett managed to escape from such a perilous situation. Fett's expertise as a bounty hunter, combined with his Mandalorian instincts, played a vital role in his escape. Boba Fett's resilience is often noted throughout the Star Wars series, and his background as a clone of Jango Fett imbued him with exceptional survival abilities. His adaptability in combat, quick thinking, and ability to remain calm under pressure are essential elements in his skill set. These traits would have enabled him to find an escape route, or at least counteract the worst effects of the Sarlacc's digestion process. Another theory worth considering is Fett's use of his jetpack as part of his standard equipment. Boba Fett's jetpack was one of his most vital tools in his arsenal, enabling him to fly short distances, evade attacks, and maneuver in tight spaces. Though he was incapacitated by the Sarlacc initially, it is possible that Fett's jetpack was able to help him break free of the creature's grip, allowing him to escape before being fully consumed. The Sarlacc's digestive system, though slow, could not have processed Fett's Beskar armor and jetpack in time for him to make a successful escape. Fett's ingenuity, combined with his tactical use of technology, would have made this escape plausible. However, another unexplored element of the Sarlacc's biology could also offer clues to Boba Fett's survival. Some theories suggest that the Sarlacc might possess otherworldly abilities, such as a limited telepathic influence, or it could be that the Sarlacc's internal structure offered compartments or passages that weren't immediately obvious. Fett, known for his bounty hunting experience and knowledge of alien species, may have recognized an opening within the Sarlacc or escaped through a hidden passage, much like the tunnels that exist within many large creatures. Fett may have also used his Mandalorian training to calm himself, allowing him to find these hidden routes. Furthermore, the survival of Boba Fett could also be explained by his understanding of the Force, or more specifically, the psychological influence of survival instincts. Although Fett himself is not Force-sensitive, the tension between the dark side and willpower plays a significant role in his escape. His sheer determination to survive, his refusal to accept death in such a humiliating manner, could have been a psychological driving force in his survival. The Sarlacc's consciousness, if we speculate that it has some form of sentient thought, might have been overwhelmed by Fett's unrelenting will to escape, thus allowing him to exploit an opportunity for survival. In addition, there could be an unknown technology or hidden asset that Fett used to escape. While his jetpack and armor are the most obvious candidates, there's a chance that outside help played a role, either from another Mandalorian ally or a galactic contact who was able to track Fett's last known location. This outside intervention might have helped Fett escape at the moment of his greatest vulnerability. Boba Fett has always maintained a network of contacts including criminals, bounty hunters, and mercenaries, and one of these figures might have played a subtle role in Fett's miraculous escape from the Sarlacc. Boba Fett's character transformation is one of the most significant outcomes of his escape from the Sarlacc pit. Before the incident, Fett was primarily driven by his role as a mercenary and bounty hunter, a figure defined by his cool demeanor, calculating nature, and uncompromising focus on completing jobs. His reputation as the galaxy's most feared and efficient bounty hunter made him a symbol of ruthlessness, capable of capturing anyone for the right price. But his escape from the Sarlacc, coupled with the subsequent time spent recovering, would mark the beginning of a deeper shift in his character, from a mercenary to a figure focused on personal redemption and legacy. The trauma of being swallowed by the Sarlacc, coupled with a sense of humiliation that came with it, would have had a profound psychological impact on Fett. He was, after all, a man who had always prided himself on self-reliance and control. Being captured and defeated by the Sarlacc, a creature that slowly digests its prey over 1,000 years, could be seen as a humbling and humiliating experience. The fact that he survived meant he had to come to terms with his vulnerability, his mortality, and the fragility of his identity as the galaxy's greatest hunter. This moment would instigate a re-evaluation of his goals and motivations, especially considering the new era ushered in by the collapse of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic. In the aftermath of his escape, Fett would no longer be the ruthless, impersonal bounty hunter he once was. He would seek a new purpose, one tied not just to survival but to something more meaningful, a personal code of honor, an understanding of his own legacy, and the potential for redemption. This is clearly reflected in his decision to take on the mantle of leadership in Tatooine and in the Book of Boba Fett series, where he aims to create a new criminal empire. However, his approach to leadership is fundamentally different from his past. Whereas he once operated solely in the shadows, calculating and isolated, he now seeks to rule with respect and understanding. Fett's survival and subsequent actions signal his desire for more than just material wealth or fame. His return to Tatooine after years of being a bounty hunter signifies a deeper shift in his psyche. He is now a figure who questions his role in the galaxy and seeks purpose beyond bounty hunting. His attempt to establish control over Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire is driven not just by greed but by a desire for respect, for recognition as someone who can lead with strength and honor, not simply as a mercenary bound by the confines of his previous life. Fett's leadership, especially his dealings with the Tusken Raiders, reflect a shift toward a more empathetic approach to those under his control, a far cry from the cold, emotionless mercenary he had once been. Another significant aspect of his transformation is his growing relationship with the people around him. Before the Sarlacc incident, Fett was a loner, defined by his solitary existence and his ability to operate independently. He was a figure who valued self-sufficiency above all else and trusted no one. However, after his escape, Fett's interactions with Fennec Shand, a fellow bounty hunter, and the Tusken Raiders show that he is beginning to form genuine alliances and relationships based on mutual respect. His partnership with Fennec, in particular, marks a new era of teamwork and collaboration. Fett, for the first time, seems to recognize the value of having loyal partners rather than operating alone. This shift towards teamwork and building connections speaks to a deeper change in his outlook on life. Rather than pursuing revenge or vengeance for past grievances, Fett begins to seek legitimacy and stability. His leadership in the Book of Boba Fett is not one of tyrannical domination but of honor, caring, and an understanding of the need to bring about change in a galaxy that was still reeling from years of conflict. Fett's journey from the Sarlacc pit to his new role as a leader reflects a larger arc of personal growth and redemption. His survival is not just about escaping death, it is about escaping the legacy of his past and finding a new path forward. At the same time, Fett's journey post-Sarlacc also shows his struggle with identity. As a clone of Jar Jar Fett, Boba's identity has always been linked to his father's legacy. His survival in the Sarlacc pit could symbolize his break from that legacy and his emergence as an individual, capable of defining his own path in the galaxy. This journey towards self-realization is deeply significant for Fett's character. The fact that he survived the Sarlacc pit, an experience that should have been fatal, mirrors his struggle to break free from the expectations placed upon him as a clone and to shape his own future. The pit, in this sense, becomes a metaphor for the prison he had been living in, a prison created by his past as a clone, his life as a bounty hunter, and his reliance on violence and fear. Escaping it allows him to step into a new role where he can decide for himself what kind of man he wants to be. In addition to this personal redemption, Fett's survival also forces him to reckon with the larger galactic landscape. The galaxy, having recently undergone the fall of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic, was in a period of transition. Old power structures were crumbling, and new factions were rising, each vying for control and influence. Fett, as a survivor of both the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War, would need to navigate these shifting political currents in order to survive. His role in the galaxy would no longer be defined by his work as a bounty hunter, but by his efforts to carve out a new place in a galaxy that no longer revolved around warfare and conflict. Fett's evolution from a lone bounty hunter to a leader of a criminal empire reflects his shift from self-interest to a broader vision for the future of his people, his allies, and his legacy. Fett's decision to leave behind his life as a solitary bounty hunter and seek a new role as a leader is one of the most significant shifts in his character arc. After escaping the Sarlacc pit, Fett's primary motivation is no longer about collecting bounties or reclaiming his lost reputation. Instead, he is propelled by a desire for meaning, a need to establish control, and an urge to reshape his legacy in a galaxy no longer dominated by the Empire. His new focus is on the creation of a new criminal empire, but this empire is fundamentally different from the ruthless organizations that came before it. Whereas his mentor, Jabba the Hutt, ran his underworld empire through fear, manipulation, and oppression, Fett seeks to rule with respect, honor, and a more fair system. This shift is part of Fett's desire to create stability in a chaotic galaxy where lawlessness and crime often ran rampant. Fett understands that the era of tyranny under the Empire is over, and the galaxy now demands a different kind of leader, one who can both lead and negotiate, someone who can uphold their own values while maintaining a presence in galactic politics. This transformation into a benevolent ruler, as opposed to a mercenary, is a key part of Fett's personal evolution after surviving the Sarlacc. While his decision to seize power is driven by necessity, the desire to survive in the aftermath of the Empire's fall, it is also a reflection of Fett's need to reclaim his agency in a galaxy that had long treated him as a mere tool for others. Fett's rise to power in Tatooine allows him to re-establish his identity not just as a hunter, but as a force for stability. He no longer seeks out bounties for the sake of profit, but pursues his own version of control. Fett's leadership, especially in the book of Boba Fett, revolves around self-determination and a desire to build a lasting legacy, not based on fear, but on his own terms. One of the key aspects of Fett's evolution into a leader is his approach to his criminal empire. Rather than simply taking what he can through violence and intimidation, Fett seeks to govern through a more balanced approach. His dealings with the Tusken Raiders, for example, are marked by an understanding of the importance of alliances and mutual respect. Instead of viewing the Tuskens as mere obstacles or enemies, Fett treats them as partners, learning to negotiate with them and offering them a place in his broader plan for control. This demonstrates a shift from his earlier, more self-serving existence toward a more inclusive vision of governance. Fett's character arc is now marked by tactical alliances, diplomatic interactions, and the careful balance of power, themes that were largely absent from his earlier work as a bounty hunter. Another significant shift is Fett's interaction with Fennec Shand, who becomes a central figure in Fett's new life. Fennec, once a highly skilled bounty hunter herself, represents a kindred spirit for Fett. Someone who understands the grittiness of the underworld, but also values loyalty and honor. The relationship between Fett and Fennec evolves over the course of the book of Boba Fett, transforming from a business partnership into a genuine alliance based on mutual respect. Fennec's presence also helps Fett maintain his focus on building something that will endure, a lasting empire based on cooperation, not just violence. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit can also be seen as symbolic of his ability to survive in the face of overwhelming odds. Throughout the galaxy's tumultuous history, survival has always been tied to adaptability and the willingness to evolve. Fett's return from the Sarlacc is not merely a physical escape, but an embodiment of the larger galactic shift occurring in the aftermath of the Empire's fall. As the galaxy moves from imperial domination to a more fragmented and democratic state, figures like Boba Fett become pivotal in shaping the future. His evolution reflects the galaxy's ongoing struggle for peace, order, and stability, and the way in which new leaders must navigate the increasingly complex political realities of a post-Empire world. Fett's survival is a testament to the strength of character and adaptability, qualities that have allowed him to succeed in a galaxy rife with turmoil. While his life as a bounty hunter was once defined by profit, violence, and isolation, his escape from the Sarlacc marks the beginning of a new chapter, one where he can redefine his role in the galaxy. His decision to build an empire not out of tyranny but of respect demonstrates how even the most ruthless of figures can change, evolve, and choose to shape their future in a more positive direction. This shift reflects the broader theme of redemption and rebirth that runs throughout Star Wars, as even the darkest characters have the potential to grow and change. Moreover, Boba Fett's return from the Sarlacc pit is not just a personal victory, but a reflection of the changing nature of power in the galaxy. The galactic power structures are in flux, and figures like Fett have the opportunity to seize new roles and influence in ways that were previously unavailable. The end of the Empire represents the fall of one power structure, but it also marks the rise of new leaders, factions, and alliances. Fett, having survived the Sarlacc, is now in a position to take advantage of these changes and define his place in the new order that is emerging. Before the Sarlacc pit, Boba Fett was defined by his role as a ruthless bounty hunter. He had a reputation as the best in the business, feared across the galaxy for his efficiency, silence, and deadliness. His life was one of solitary profit-driven missions, where his only loyalty was to the highest bidder. He was driven by a sense of personal pride in his work and a stoic resolve to complete his jobs at any cost. There was little room in Fett's life for emotional connections or personal growth. His past, defined by his clone heritage and his father's legacy, pushed him forward into a life of violence and isolation. However, his time inside the Sarlacc pit represented a turning point in his personal narrative. Surviving the slow, agonizing process of digestion in the Sarlacc's acidic stomach required more than just the physical resilience that Fett had honed as a bounty hunter. It required a complete mental overhaul. Fett's previous identity as a cold, calculating mercenary, whose existence was defined by his ability to evade death and fulfill dangerous contracts, had been shattered by the trauma and humiliation of being captured by the Sarlacc. In the aftermath of this event, Fett was no longer the merciless bounty hunter that the galaxy had feared. Instead, he emerged from the pit as a man with a new sense of purpose to build something lasting, something that would ensure that his survival had meaning beyond the contracts he'd once completed. Fett's escape from the Sarlacc pit wasn't just a return to his previous life, it was a rebirth. It was a moment where he could shed his old identity and begin to redefine himself on his own terms. The survival from such an ordeal would weigh heavily on anyone, especially someone like Boba Fett, who had always prided himself on self-sufficiency and his ability to face death without flinching. His grapple with mortality, his near-death experience, would make him question his purpose. Why had he survived? What did it mean for a man like Fett to be brought face to face with death, only to escape it? This struggle would set the stage for Fett's psychological transformation, one in which identity was no longer defined by his profession, but by his need to create something more meaningful. Fett's transformation is most evident in his approach to power and leadership after his escape. No longer driven solely by profit, Fett sought control, not for its own sake, but to reclaim his place in the galaxy on his own terms. This desire for power was not about domination, as it had been for Jabba the Hutt or the Empire. Fett's rise to power was driven by a need to preserve his legacy and ensure that he would be remembered as more than just a mercenary. He wasn't interested in creating an empire based on fear and intimidation. Instead, his vision was to build an empire based on respect and loyalty. This marked a significant shift from the way the galaxy had seen him before, the merciless bounty hunter who operated in the shadows and cared only about completing his missions. Now Fett was beginning to care about something greater, the future of his people, the preservation of his culture, and ultimately his own redemption. The leadership style that Boba Fett adopts in the Book of Boba Fett stands in stark contrast to the old methods of criminal overlords like Jabba the Hutt. While Jabba ruled with an iron fist, using fear and brutality to maintain control over his criminal empire, Fett takes a more measured approach. His dealings with the Tusken Raiders, for instance, show a willingness to negotiate and respect other cultures, even those who had traditionally been feared and marginalized by the galactic community. Fett does not see the Tusken Raiders as mere obstacles or enemies to be eradicated. Instead, he views them as potential allies who, through mutual understanding, could be brought into his vision for a new world order in the galaxy. In this way, Fett's leadership becomes an embodiment of his evolution from a self-serving mercenary to a thoughtful leader, one who understands the importance of alliances, respect, and mutual benefit in a galaxy still recovering from decades of tyranny. The character arc of Boba Fett thus symbolizes a personal redemption, not only from the trauma of the Sarlacc pit, but from the very identity that had previously defined him. It also signifies his awareness that true strength lies not in conquering others, but in uniting them under a shared vision. Fett's decision to take on the mantle of a leader in the criminal underworld of Tatooine is about more than just power or revenge. It's a quest for meaning. As Fett seeks to establish his criminal empire, he chooses to rule not through sheer violence, but through restraint and diplomacy. This marks a profound shift in the character of someone who had once been solely defined by ruthless efficiency. Fett's motivations are no longer about personal gain. They are about creating a system in which he can preserve his culture, maintain order, and be respected for the strength and resilience he embodies. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit is not merely a physical escape from death. It is the beginning of a larger journey of redemption. Much like other characters in Star Wars who face the dark sides of their past, such as Anakin Skywalker, Fett's struggle is about understanding the consequences of his actions and finding a path that leads to personal growth. His near-death experience forces him to reckon with his own mortality and to reconsider his place in the galaxy. For a man who has spent most of his life as a bounty hunter, concerned only with his next job, surviving the Sarlacc pit forces him to question everything about his identity, his goals, and his legacy. The concept of legacy is also central to Fett's journey. Before the Sarlacc, Fett's reputation as the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy was his only defining trait. He had no long-term vision, no goals beyond completing his contracts and surviving. But after escaping, his goals expand beyond just himself. Fett now wishes to build something lasting, to leave a legacy that will outlast him. This legacy is not based on violence or dominance. It's based on cooperation, respect, and a new way of leadership. This is, in essence, Fett's redemption. He is no longer just the hunter. He is becoming a leader, builder, and symbol of survival in the face of overwhelming odds. Fett's redemption is not the typical arc of a character who seeks to make up for past mistakes through acts of heroism or by taking down a great villain. Instead, his redemption is personal, quiet, and pragmatic. It is about redefining his identity, recognizing that his survival has meaning beyond just living to fight another day. His survival represents the strength of resilience, the ability to adapt and evolve in a changing galaxy. His legacy, built upon endurance and wisdom, is a testament to the possibility of personal growth in a universe defined by war, violence, and chaos. With the Empire destroyed, and the New Republic struggling to assert its influence across the galaxy, there was a vacuum of power in the criminal underworld and among various planetary systems. The galaxy, long governed by the Empire's iron fist, was now in the midst of a political transition. The New Republic, while a hopeful beacon for many, could not immediately fill the power gap that had been left in the wake of imperial rule. This resulted in a resurgence of criminal syndicates, warlords, and mercenary factions, all vying for control over galactic territories and resources. This chaotic environment provided the perfect backdrop for Boba Fett's return to the galactic stage. The power vacuum that followed the Empire's collapse allowed for figures like Boba Fett, who had long been defined by his role as a bounty hunter, to reinvent himself as a leader. Fett's decision to take control of Tatooine, the former stronghold of Jabba the Hutt, was not merely about personal gain or revenge against the remnants of Jabba's criminal empire. It was a calculated effort to reclaim power, not as a mercenary, but as someone with a deeper understanding of how power structures operated in a galaxy rife with instability and conflict. Fett's approach to leadership was drastically different from the methods employed by the previous rulers of the criminal underworld, like Jabba the Hutt. Jabba ruled through fear, exploiting the weak and eliminating anyone who posed a threat to his empire. Fett, on the other hand, sought to rule with respect. This shift in approach is significant, as it marks the beginning of a new era of leadership in the galaxy, one that is less about brutality and more about strategic alliances, mutual respect, and diplomacy. Fett's decision to not simply destroy Jabba's empire, but to take control and reshape it speaks to his broader desire to preserve a stable power structure in a galaxy that had been fractured by years of war and chaos. Fett's leadership style, especially his treatment of the Tusken Raiders, provides further insight into this shift. Instead of viewing the Tuskens as hostile, savage beings, he sees them as potential allies. This willingness to engage with and understand a traditionally marginalized group is a stark contrast to the way criminal lords like Jabba would have treated them, either exploiting them or completely disregarding them. Fett, through his leadership, is working to unite factions that were previously seen as enemies, fostering a sense of community rather than fear and mistrust. His approach to leadership is not without its challenges. However, the galaxy was still rife with rebel factions, remnants of the Empire, and new criminal elements that were determined to carve out their own empires in the chaos. Fett's decision to align himself with some of these factions, while maintaining his independence, demonstrates his ability to navigate the complex political landscape of the post-Empire galaxy. His ties with the New Republic and other emerging factions serve as a testament to his adaptability and foresight, showing that he is no longer just a lone hunter, but a key player in the galactic game of power. While Fett's survival represents a personal victory, his rise to power in the post-Empire galaxy has far-reaching consequences for the galactic balance of power. Fett, once a lone figure operating in the shadows, now commands a seat at the table with some of the galaxy's most powerful players. His leadership in Tatooine is but one example of how figures from the old criminal regime are now vying for influence in a new order. His rise highlights the power vacuum left behind by the fall of the Empire and the increasing presence of independent warlords and mercenary factions. Fett's role as a criminal lord and his connection to the underworld serves as a reminder that even in a galaxy trying to rebuild itself, the forces of chaos and lawlessness remain. The New Republic, for all its good intentions, has yet to fully establish control over the outer rims of the galaxy, where systems like Tatooine and other lawless planets still fall under the influence of criminal syndicates. Fett's ability to control this space while maintaining a working relationship with the New Republic and other factions is a delicate balancing act. His actions will have repercussions, not just for his immediate surroundings, but for the broader galactic community as a whole. Moreover, Fett's survival from the Sarlacc pit is not only a personal story of resilience, but a symbol of the endurance of the old ways in a galaxy that is still defined by conflict and struggle for power. While the Empire may have fallen, its influence continues to linger in the form of the Imperial remnants, criminal syndicates, and rogue factions that resist the New Republic's attempt to bring order to the galaxy. Fett's ability to survive, adapt, and ultimately seize power in such a galaxy demonstrates the continuing importance of strong leadership and strategic alliances in a galaxy where peace is still an elusive concept. Boba Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit signifies the resilience of a man who refuses to be defined by his past. His escape is symbolic of his refusal to accept a fate dictated by others, a trait that has always been at the core of his identity. However, his survival also represents a shift in his worldview, one that moves beyond self-interest and towards a broader desire to create something lasting. This transformation is reflected in his approach to leadership and his handling of power. His rise to power as a ruler in Tatooine, as well as his influence on the galaxy at large, shows that Fett is no longer driven by the same motivations that once defined him as a bounty hunter. While he still retains the skills that made him the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, Fett now seeks something greater, a chance to build a legacy based on respect, alliances, and cultural understanding. His survival from the Sarlacc, in many ways, marks the end of his previous life as a mercenary and the beginning of a new chapter in which he seeks to define himself on his own terms. The galactic legacy that Boba Fett will leave behind is one that speaks not only to survival but also to the possibility of change and redemption. In a galaxy that has known endless war, conflict, and empire building, Fett's role as a leader is symbolic of the possibility of new beginnings. His survival represents not just his ability to overcome death, but his capacity to evolve and embrace change. Whether his legacy will be one of peace or dominance, Fett's journey from the Sarlacc pit to power in Tatooine will forever be remembered as a pivotal moment in the galaxy's ongoing story. As we delve deeper into Boba Fett's survival and his transformation from a feared bounty hunter to a significant leader in the galaxy, it becomes increasingly clear that his emergence from the Sarlacc pit symbolizes much more than the physical escape from an inevitable death. Fett's return marks the beginning of a profound and multifaceted evolution that will impact not only his personal identity, but also the broader dynamics of power in the galaxy. This new trajectory in his life is characterized by a shift in focus from personal gain and ruthless efficiency to a pursuit of legacy, redemption, and cultural preservation. His role as a mercenary has been replaced by a drive to build something lasting, something that defines his survival as part of a larger narrative. This shift represents not just a personal transformation, but a response to the broader galactic order, an order that was torn apart by the fall of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic. To understand the significance of Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit, one must first consider the nature of the Sarlacc itself. The Sarlacc is an infamous creature, known for its ability to capture and slowly digest its prey over a period of thousands of years. The fact that Boba Fett survived its grasp speaks to more than just his physical resilience. It suggests that survival in the galaxy, particularly for someone like Fett, is not merely about evading death, but about using one's skills, knowledge, and sheer force of will to overcome what seems like an insurmountable obstacle. His survival marks a key turning point for Fett, but it is not just a physical escape, it is a metaphor for his larger evolution. He escaped not only the Sarlacc, but also the narrow view of his life as a mercenary and bounty hunter, constrained by a reputation based on fear and efficiency. Upon escaping the Sarlacc, Fett does not immediately revert to his old ways. Instead, he sets out on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. For years, Fett had been known as a figure whose only allegiance was to himself and his contracts. His reputation as a bounty hunter preceded him, and he was feared for his ability to track and capture anyone across the galaxy. However, the trauma of surviving the Sarlacc forces Fett to reassess the nature of his existence. His need to survive was no longer enough. He had to define himself beyond his past and look for a greater purpose, one that went beyond personal survival and toward legacy. This moment of reflection was critical not only for Fett's growth, but for the larger themes that would dominate his story moving forward. As the galaxy was in a state of flux following the collapse of the Empire, Fett would have to redefine his role in the galaxy, particularly in the context of the changing political and social environment. His emergence from the Sarlacc signifies that Fett is now entering a new phase of his life, one where he is no longer a loner or a mercenary with no attachments. He is now a figure with a sense of responsibility, someone who must weigh his actions, not just in terms of personal gain, but with regard to the greater good and the survival of his people. This shift in mentality is most evident in his decision to take control of Tatooine, a planet that had long been under the oppressive rule of Jabba the Hutt. Fett's decision to rule not through fear and violence, but through strategic alliances and mutual respect marks a radical departure from the methods of Jabba. Jabba's empire, which had been built on intimidation and ruthlessness, was now a thing of the past. Fett's leadership, on the other hand, is centered around the idea of stability and order. He seeks to establish control in a galaxy that has long been defined by chaos and lawlessness, offering a new model of governance that focuses not on domination, but on the preservation of peace and cooperation. This evolution in Fett's character also speaks to a broader theme in the Star Wars saga: the possibility of redemption and the potential for change. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit, his escape from certain death, can be seen as a metaphor for the larger narrative of redemption that runs through many of the central characters in the franchise. Like Anakin Skywalker, who was redeemed through his son's actions, Fett's escape allows him the chance to redefine his future, to forge a path that is no longer defined by his past sins and mistakes. In the past, Fett had been driven by self-interest, operating in the shadows of galactic politics without ever considering the larger implications of his actions. But his survival changes him. He is no longer the merciless figure he once was. The fact that he survives the Sarlacc after being trapped and seemingly lost imbues him with a new sense of purpose. He now has the opportunity to shape his destiny in a way that he could never have before. This shift from survival to legacy building is central to his story. One of the most significant changes in Fett's character following his survival is his approach to relationships. In the past, Fett had little use for relationships, seeing others only as tools to be used in the completion of his missions. He operated alone, trusted no one, and cared for nothing other than his next paycheck. However, his time in the Sarlacc pit, combined with his survival, forces him to rethink this solitary existence. In his quest for survival, he forms a partnership with Fennec Shand, another skilled bounty hunter, who becomes a close ally and confidant. This partnership marks the first time in Fett's life that he has forged a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than simply using someone as a tool. This change in his attitude toward others demonstrates his growing capacity for trust and collaboration. Fett's relationship with Fennec also speaks to his willingness to build something lasting with the help of others, not just rely on his own skills and resources. This is a significant departure from the man who once relied solely on himself. Furthermore, Fett's leadership in Tatooine and his dealings with the Tusken Raiders further illustrate this transformation. Instead of ruling through violence and fear, as many warlords in the galaxy did, Fett chooses to negotiate with the Tuskens, respecting their ways and working with them to build a mutually beneficial arrangement. This decision shows that Fett is no longer merely a warrior, bent on conquering and defeating others. He is a leader, one who understands the need for unity and understanding in a galaxy that has been torn apart by years of war and chaos. His willingness to work with others, rather than simply subjugating them, marks a critical moment in his character arc, one that speaks to his growth as a leader and redeemed figure. As Fett's story unfolds, it becomes clear that his survival has not just affected him on a personal level, but has implications for the broader galaxy as well. The power vacuum left by the collapse of the Empire created a space for figures like Fett to step forward and shape the galaxy in ways they had not before. Fett's emergence as a leader in Tatooine demonstrates the growing influence of criminal syndicates, warlords, and other rogue elements who seek to capitalize on the power vacuum. But unlike other figures in the galaxy, Fett does not seek to dominate or destroy. He seeks to build something lasting and respectful, offering a model of leadership that is distinctly different from the tyrannical regimes that came before him. As we continue to explore the profound transformation in Boba Fett's character following his escape from the Sarlacc pit, it's important to delve into the larger implications of his survival, not just on his personal trajectory, but on the broader political landscape of the galaxy. Fett's emergence from the Sarlacc pit serves as a symbol of the shift in the balance of power, the end of the Empire, and the rise of new power structures. While Fett's survival and subsequent rise to leadership in Tatooine could be seen as an isolated event in his personal arc, it also reflects a larger trend in the galaxy. His evolution from a lone mercenary to a leader of his own empire directly connects to the increasing fragmentation of power and influence in the galaxy. This shift from empire to independent leaders, warlords, and new systems of rule mirrors the challenges the galaxy faces in the aftermath of the Empire's fall and the New Republic's rise. The fall of the Empire created a significant power vacuum in the galaxy, one that has been filled by multiple factions, both legal and illegal. The Empire had controlled vast stretches of space through sheer military force and tyranny, but in its wake, new players began to rise to fill the gaps. The New Republic sought to restore peace and democratic order, but its influence was often hampered by the sheer size of the galaxy and the lingering remnants of imperial loyalists, criminal syndicates, and rogue factions. While the New Republic struggled to establish itself as the definitive governing body, the remnants of the Empire continued to create instability across the galaxy. Boba Fett's rise to power on Tatooine is a direct reflection of this chaotic period. His return to Tatooine and his takeover of Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire is significant not just for his personal storyline, but for its implications in the broader galaxy. Fett's actions signal a return to a criminal underworld that was more self-sustaining and potentially more powerful than the Empire ever was in certain respects. While the Empire ruled with a strict iron fist, criminal factions like the Hutt cartel, Mandalorians, and others who operated in the margins were often more adept at navigating the underbelly of galactic society. These factions could thrive in a post-Empire galaxy where traditional military rule had crumbled and the New Republic struggled to impose its vision of order across such a vast expanse. Fett's shift from bounty hunter to crime lord exemplifies this changing dynamic. In the power vacuum left by Jabba's death and the Empire's disintegration, Fett sees an opportunity to consolidate power and reshape the galaxy's criminal underworld into something more controlled, more strategic, and ultimately more stable. Fett understands the importance of control in the galaxy's current state, where the rule of law is still fledgling and easily circumvented by those with the right connections. His leadership on Tatooine could be seen as a strategic move, not just to gain wealth and territory, but to create a new order, one that could withstand the chaotic shifts and power struggles of the post-Empire galaxy. Boba Fett's role in the post-Empire galaxy is also defined by his ability to adapt to a world that no longer values conquest through force alone. The collapse of the Empire marks a major turning point, not just in terms of military might, but in the evolution of power structures. Unlike the Empire's hierarchical structure of command and conquest, Fett's rise to power is more tactical and nuanced. He is not simply a figure who seeks to dominate, but one who understands the importance of alliances, negotiations, and strategic partnerships. Fett is a figure who knows how to survive, and as such, he is perfectly suited to navigate the new political landscape of a galaxy in flux. Fett's transformation into a leader is particularly evident in his dealings with the Tusken Raiders, the Freetown settlers, and his relationship with figures like Fennec Shand. While many warlords would have simply ruled with an iron fist, Fett's approach is about mutual benefit and balance. His relationship with the Tusken Raiders is the clearest example of this evolution. In the past, these nomadic people were often seen as hostile, barbaric savages who were only feared by the galactic community. However, Fett recognizes the strategic value of their land, their knowledge, and their survival instincts. Instead of eliminating them or viewing them solely as a threat, he works with the Tuskens, offering them protection and respect in exchange for their alliance. This approach contrasts sharply with the previous rulers of Tatooine, like Jabba the Hutt, who viewed the Tuskens and the underworld as mere pawns in his criminal empire. Fett, on the other hand, understands the value of these alliances and chooses to integrate them into his vision for the future of Tatooine. By doing so, Fett creates a network of influence that extends far beyond the traditional methods of violent conquest. Instead, he builds relationships founded on respect, loyalty, and mutual survival, qualities that make him not just a powerful warlord, but also a visionary leader who understands how to balance power and influence in a galaxy that is constantly evolving. Fett's leadership style is a stark contrast to the old way of operating, especially in the underworld. His rise marks a new era of leadership, one that focuses on strategic thinking, partnerships, and a clear vision for the future. Unlike Jabba, who ruled his empire with fear and exploitation, Fett seeks to create something sustainable, something that can outlast the chaotic, violent cycles of galactic warfare. Fett's journey toward creating a stable empire is not about the pursuit of tyranny, but about finding a balance between power and understanding. This approach not only serves to secure his position in the galaxy, but also opens up new possibilities for the future of criminal and galactic rule. At the heart of Fett's transformation is his desire to leave a legacy, not just as a bounty hunter or criminal lord, but as a figure who can shape the future. His survival is symbolic of his refusal to be bound by his past and his determination to define his own path. This is where Fett's identity becomes intertwined with his larger galactic ambitions. The Sarlacc pit was a defining moment, forcing him to confront his own vulnerability and rethink his approach to life and power. As the galaxy continues to rebuild in the wake of the Empire's fall, Fett's survival represents the resilience of a man who understands that even in the face of almost certain destruction, there is always a chance to redefine and reshape one's future. Fett's legacy is tied to his understanding that the galaxy is in a state of flux, and it is not simply about surviving, it is about thriving in an era of change. His ability to adapt to the post-Empire galaxy is key to his survival, and his strategic intelligence will define his influence in the years to come. In many ways, Fett is a symbol of the broader post-Empire experience, the struggle for personal identity, the rediscovery of purpose, and the desire to forge a new path in a galaxy that has been forever altered by the rise and fall of empires. The collapse of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic represent the end of centralized imperial power. This shift leaves behind a galaxy in chaos, with no single force powerful enough to enforce order across the many planets, systems, and factions that once bowed to the Empire's rule. The New Republic is focused on rebuilding, and while its goals are democratic and peaceful, its influence is still limited, especially in the Outer Rim and other less centralized regions. In this context, the rise of warlords, mercenaries, and independent leaders like Boba Fett is not just inevitable but essential for maintaining stability in these lawless areas. Fett's ascension to power on Tatooine, taking control of the Hutt Empire left behind after Jabba's death, is a clear example of how new power structures are forming in the post-Empire galaxy. Unlike the centralized, militaristic rule of the Empire, Fett represents a new kind of leader, one who navigates the chaos not through direct confrontation or brute force, but through diplomacy, alliances, and mutual understanding. His leadership style signals a shift away from tyrannical rule, instead emphasizing loyalty and stability. Fett's survival is key to this transformation, as it marks the emergence of a new generation of leaders who understand that power is not just about force or fear, but about strategic alliances and long-term stability. The New Republic, though well-intentioned, cannot exert control over the entire galaxy, especially in the Outer Rim, which has long been a lawless frontier. The absence of the Empire's authoritarian reach creates a void in leadership, one that Fett and others like him are quick to fill. His decision to take Tatooine and restructure the existing criminal infrastructure demonstrates how criminal syndicates and rogue factions are now adapting to the changing landscape. Instead of purely violent takeovers or chaotic conflict, Fett seeks to build something more structured. His ambition is to create a stable network, one that reflects his ability to adapt to the new era where force is no longer the dominant method of leadership. This shift in power also demonstrates a fundamental change in the way the galaxy views leadership. The old ways, the imperial rule of the Empire, the fear-based systems under Jabba the Hutt, and the unchecked power of the criminal cartels are no longer as effective in the post-Empire galaxy. The new model of leadership, as represented by Fett, is one that combines elements of both the old and the new. It embraces strategic control and alliances, but also keeps the independent spirit of the outlaw world. Fett is not a ruler who seeks to dominate or crush his opponents through fear. Rather, he is a strategic leader who understands that his power relies on the cooperation and loyalty of those around him. Boba Fett's influence on the criminal underworld is perhaps the most significant aspect of his survival story. Jabba the Hutt, one of the most notorious crime lords in the galaxy, ruled through fear, manipulation, and violence. His empire was one based on exploiting the weak, maintaining control through terror, and subjugating entire populations. After Jabba's death, Tatooine, once firmly under his control, is left in disarray. Various factions vie for dominance, but Fett, as a survivor, seizes the opportunity to reclaim power in a more calculated manner. Fett's leadership of Tatooine is marked by a strategic reshaping of the criminal empire, one that does not rely on the oppressive methods used by Jabba, but instead seeks to establish mutual respect and collaboration among those who operate in the criminal world. Fett's survival story represents a return to the idea of self-determination. While Jabba ruled with an iron fist, Fett now seeks to reshape the criminal empire into something more sustainable. His approach to leadership on Tatooine is an attempt to break free from the traditional systems of dominance. He is not merely interested in personal wealth or control. He is driven by a deeper need to preserve his heritage, to maintain the legacy of his people, and to protect those who have been marginalized or oppressed in the galaxy. His leadership is rooted in survival both on a personal level and on a galactic scale, as he seeks to carve out a place for himself in a galaxy that has long been defined by violence, conflict, and power struggles. This shift in Fett's leadership approach is not limited to his dealings with the criminal underworld. It also extends to his relationships with other factions and leaders. In the aftermath of the Empire's collapse, there is a fractured state of power, with many leaders vying for control in different sectors of the galaxy. Fett, who has long operated on the fringes of galactic society, now takes a seat at the table with other influential figures. His interactions with the New Republic and other emerging powers demonstrate his willingness to negotiate, to work within existing power structures, and to find a balance between the old and new ways of leadership. He recognizes that true control cannot be achieved through force alone, especially in a galaxy that is divided and in flux. In this context, Fett's relationships with other galactic powers become vital. His dealings with the New Republic, although tentative, are an indication of his ability to navigate the new political realities of the galaxy. While his interests may not always align with those of the Republic, Fett understands the importance of alliances and cooperation in a post-Empire world. His growing influence is a testament to his strategic thinking, his awareness of the shifting tides, and his ability to adapt to a new form of governance where flexibility and mutual respect are just as important as military might. The survival of Boba Fett and the shifting dynamics of the galaxy. Boba Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit, while a personal triumph, also speaks to a larger galactic truth. The galaxy is constantly in a state of transformation. The fall of the Empire marks the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one in which old powers are replaced by new and often unexpected forces. Fett's return symbolizes the resilience of the criminal elements of the galaxy, which, despite the end of the Empire, continue to shape the political and social landscape of the Outer Rim and beyond. The vacuum of power left by the Empire's collapse is being filled not just by the New Republic, but by figures like Fett, who represent a more independent and nuanced approach to power. These figures understand that while the old ways of empire building are no longer viable, the need for control remains. Fett, as a warrior, a survivor, and a strategist, embodies the shift from the old regime of fear and violence to a more complex system of governance, where power is not defined by domination, but by the ability to unite disparate factions, broker deals, and establish a lasting legacy. In conclusion, Fett's rise to power on Tatooine marks the reaffirmation of his identity as more than just a bounty hunter. It represents the beginning of a new chapter in galactic politics, one where power structures are shifting, and leadership is defined not by force, but by the ability to adapt and coexist. Boba Fett's survival from the Sarlacc pit is not only about his personal redemption, but also about his role in shaping the galaxy's future in a time of transition. Boba Fett's emergence from the Sarlacc pit does not just mark his personal survival, but it signals the beginning of his return to a galaxy that had changed drastically since the days of the Empire. The galaxy is no longer controlled by a single overarching empire or even an alliance of systems. It is fragmented, unstable, and still in a state of recovery after the long reign of the Empire. The collapse of the Empire created a political vacuum, one that the New Republic was struggling to fill. Despite the New Republic's efforts to establish itself as the new galactic authority, their reach was often limited to the core worlds, while systems in the Outer Rim remained largely lawless. In this environment, independent figures like Boba Fett could rise to prominence. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit exemplifies not just his resilience, but his adaptability to the changing political environment. The collapse of the Empire left behind a vacuum of power that would not be filled by conventional means. The New Republic, for all its democratic ideals, lacked the infrastructure to govern the entire galaxy, especially the Outer Rim territories that were still prone to instability. The rise of rogue factions, criminal syndicates, and warlords filled the power vacuum, and Fett's emergence as a leader was a direct response to this chaotic landscape. Fett's decision to take over Tatooine, a desert planet once controlled by Jabba the Hutt, is an example of how these new figures filled the void left by the Empire. Tatooine, once the heart of Jabba's criminal empire, was a crucial player in the galaxy's underworld. After Jabba's death at the hands of Luke Skywalker, the planet was left open for the taking. Fett, recognizing the strategic value of the planet and its surrounding systems, seized the opportunity to reshape the criminal landscape. By taking control of Jabba's territory, Fett not only gained access to the wealth and influence that came with it, but also established himself as a new power broker in the galaxy's underworld. However, Fett's approach to leadership is fundamentally different from the ruthless tactics of Jabba. While Jabba ruled through fear, intimidation, and exploitation, Fett's rule is more calculated and strategic. His leadership is marked by restraint and diplomacy, choosing to form alliances with the Tusken Raiders and Fennec Shand, rather than simply conquering and subjugating those around him. This transformation in his approach to power is critical, not just for his personal redemption, but for the broader shift in how power is exercised in the galaxy. Fett's relationship with Fennec Shand is an excellent example of this new form of leadership. Fennec, once an assassin and bounty hunter, becomes Fett's closest ally and confidant. The two share a mutual respect and understanding, both stemming from their shared experience in the underworld. Unlike Fett, who once operated alone, Fennec becomes a trusted partner in his new empire. Their bond is built on more than just professional respect. It is rooted in loyalty and mutual survival. This partnership marks a major shift in Fett's worldview, moving from a solitary existence to one in which he relies on others to help build something greater. Fennec, in many ways, represents the future of Boba Fett's leadership, a leadership that is not just about power and control, but about relationships, alliances, and mutual respect. One of the most significant and symbolic elements of Fett's rise to power is his relationship with the Tusken Raiders. Historically, the Tuskens have been portrayed as hostile, violent, and primitive, a people who were often exploited or marginalized by galactic powers. However, Fett's treatment of the Tuskens marks a sharp departure from the typical response to these desert-dwelling nomads. Instead of seeing them as an enemy to be eradicated, Fett recognizes the value they offer, both strategically and culturally. Fett's interaction with the Tuskens is marked by a sense of diplomacy and respect. Rather than conquering them or simply using them for his own gain, Fett takes the time to learn about their culture and forge an alliance. This partnership is not just about gaining power, it's about building a lasting network that can help stabilize Tatooine and its surrounding systems. In return for Fett's protection, the Tuskens provide him with the resources and knowledge needed to navigate the desert and maintain control over Tatooine. Fett's understanding of the Tuskens' traditions and their strength in the desert is key to his success on Tatooine. This relationship is also a powerful reflection of Fett's transformation as a character. As a lone bounty hunter, Fett was a man of violence, self-reliance, and individualism. However, his relationship with the Tuskens shows his ability to look beyond his own past and see the value in unity and cooperation. The fact that Fett recognizes the importance of alliances with cultures traditionally viewed as adversaries speaks to his growth as a leader. He is no longer the ruthless figure he once was, but someone who understands the importance of building bridges in a galaxy that has been fractured by war and tyranny. Fett's leadership on Tatooine also serves as a model for the broader galactic underworld. As the galaxy transitions from imperial rule to republican governance, the criminal syndicates and rogue factions are left to fill the power vacuum. Fett's rise to power demonstrates how the underworld is no longer ruled by tyranny or brutality, but by intelligence, alliances, and strategic thinking. Unlike the Empire, which used military force to impose its will, Fett's leadership relies on manipulation of social dynamics, understanding of local cultures, and forming key relationships that allow him to gain and maintain power. This shift is important not just for Fett, but for the broader galactic balance of power. The old ways of ruling, which relied on force, intimidation, and fear, are being replaced by new methods based on collaboration and negotiation. Fett's role in this transformation speaks to the way in which the galaxy is evolving from an era of dictatorship and oppression to one where independent leaders can rise and establish their own systems of governance. Fett is one of the first to capitalize on this new order, using his survival and adaptability to create a system that can endure in a galaxy that is still grappling with the fallout of the Empire's collapse. As the galactic power structure continues to fragment, Fett's actions speak to the changing nature of leadership. The galaxy is no longer dominated by a single centralized force. Instead, Power is now spread across a series of smaller factions and independent systems, each seeking to assert its own influence. Fett's rise as a leader reflects this new political reality and highlights the relevant role of independent leaders in shaping the future of the galaxy. Boba Fett and the shifting nature of power. Boba Fett's survival is more than just a personal story. It's a story of the shifting dynamics of power in a galaxy that has been irrevocably changed. The end of the Empire does not signify the end of power struggles in the galaxy. Instead, it marks the beginning of a new era, one in which old powers are replaced by new faces, and traditional power structures are questioned and redefined. Fett's role in this transition is crucial. He represents the survival of a new kind of power, one that is built not on force and violence, but on adaptability, alliances, and the ability to navigate a rapidly changing political landscape. His leadership on Tatooine is a microcosm of the broader changes taking place in the galaxy. As the New Republic struggles to consolidate its control and restore peace, figures like Fett step forward to fill the gaps left by the Empire. These figures are not interested in simply replacing the old order with another regime based on tyranny and domination. Instead, they are more focused on creating stable systems where cooperation and mutual respect can thrive. Fett's leadership offers a glimpse into the future of galactic politics, where new leaders rise based on their ability to understand the complexities of the galaxy and to build a lasting legacy based on loyalty, respect, and strategic alliances. Fett's new relationships, from solitary hunter to strategic leader. Before his time in the Sarlacc, Boba Fett was largely a lone wolf. As a bounty hunter, his life was defined by independence, and he had few close relationships beyond those that were transactional or professional. His reputation as a ruthless, efficient hunter meant that he often worked alone or with temporary allies, and his only true loyalty was to himself and the job at hand. However, his survival in the Sarlacc pit marked a pivotal change in his perspective on life and his place in the galaxy. Once an isolated figure defined by self-reliance, Fett began to recognize the value of alliances, collaboration, and loyalty, concepts that were once foreign to his earlier existence as a mercenary. This shift is most apparent in his relationship with Fennec Shand. When Fett first encountered Fennec, she was a fellow bounty hunter, skilled and deadly in her own right. Initially, their partnership seemed pragmatic, born out of necessity. However, over time, it becomes clear that Fennec is more than just an ally. She becomes Fett's trusted confidant and the first true partner he has had in many years. This relationship represents a fundamental shift in Fett's character, moving away from a solitary existence to one built on trust and mutual respect. Their bond is a partnership that combines their skills and strengths, creating a new dynamic where loyalty and strategic collaboration are the foundation of their joint ambitions. It also marks the beginning of Fett's understanding that true leadership cannot be achieved through power alone, but through connection, support, and the ability to unite diverse groups toward a common goal. Fett's partnership with Fennec also serves as a pragmatic strategy. Having someone like Fennec, who shares his experiences and understands the realities of galactic survival, becomes essential in navigating the political complexity of the galaxy. She is not just a bounty hunter or mercenary. Fennec has become someone who can help Fett maintain control of Tatooine and manage the delicate power dynamics of his criminal empire. This relationship is indicative of Fett's new leadership style, one that values allies and partnerships rather than isolation and fear. The trust and cooperation between the two also give Fett a sense of stability, something he has long lacked, and in return, he offers Fennec a sense of purpose beyond her own individual goals. Fett, Sithin's influence over the Tusken Raiders, a symbol of diplomacy. Another significant relationship for Fett after his escape is his engagement with the Tusken Raiders. Traditionally, the Tuskens are portrayed as a violent, insular people, often feared and misunderstood by the wider galactic community. They have a reputation for being hostile and uncooperative, but Fett's interaction with them shows a different approach, one that reflects his growing understanding of the importance of alliances and cultural respect. The Tusken Raiders, who had previously been seen by others as mere savages, become a crucial part of Fett's rise to power. He does not treat them as mere pawns in his quest for control, but rather as a group with honor and strength that can contribute to his larger goals. Fett's approach to the Tusken Raiders represents a new era of leadership. Instead of relying solely on fear or violence, he builds a partnership with the Tuskens. By helping them protect their way of life from external threats and respecting their cultural traditions, Fett gains their loyalty and trust. This alliance with the Tuskens is crucial to his hold over Tatooine, as they control much of the planet's desert terrain. However, the Tusken Raiders' significance to Fett's rise goes beyond simple control of territory. Their relationship symbolizes Fett's willingness to engage with and respect cultures that others might see as obstacles to his power. It demonstrates that Fett is no longer simply the ruthless bounty hunter who would dispose of enemies without a second thought. Instead, he becomes a figure who is capable of building bridges with those who were once considered adversaries. Fett's evolving relationship with the Tusken Raiders also highlights the complexity of galactic politics in the post-Empire era. No longer is power determined by simply conquering and destroying. Cooperation, diplomacy, and mutual benefit are key elements in navigating the shifting balance of power. Fett's ability to build a lasting relationship with the Tuskens, rather than simply using them for his own gain, speaks to his growth as a leader. It suggests that his rule over Tatooine is not based on brute force, but on his understanding of the galaxy's intricate dynamics and the necessity of working with others, even those who might have been considered enemies in the past. Fett's relationship with the New Republic. Navigating the galactic divide. While Fett's relationships with figures like Fennec Shand and the Tusken Raiders are based largely in the criminal underworld, his dealings with the New Republic are more complicated. The New Republic, despite its success in defeating the Empire, is still struggling to establish its influence in the galaxy. Fett, recognizing the need to balance his interests with those of the Republic, navigates his interactions with them carefully. He is not a full-fledged ally of the New Republic, but he does recognize their importance in shaping the future of the galaxy. In a way, Fett's interactions with the New Republic reflect his ability to negotiate and adapt to the shifting political realities in the galaxy. Fett's relationship with the New Republic is also defined by mutual respect and pragmatism. Fett knows that the New Republic has the power to bring about galactic peace, but he also understands that the underworld will continue to be a significant player in the galaxy, regardless of the Republic's efforts. By forming a working relationship with the New Republic, Fett ensures that his criminal empire does not come into direct conflict with their governance. He becomes a figure who, while operating on the fringes of galactic politics, is still capable of maintaining stability in a region of the galaxy that has long been neglected by the Republic's leadership. This relationship is important not just for Fett's survival, but for the New Republic's ability to establish itself as a legitimate governing body in the galaxy. While the Republic's influence is still growing, it cannot afford to ignore the criminal factions that hold sway over much of the galaxy's territories. Fett's actions demonstrate that the underworld is a necessary component of the galaxy's political landscape, and his ability to navigate both sides of the divide, the criminal and the official, makes him a unique and complex figure in the post-Empire galaxy. He is not a simple antagonist, but a key player who helps bridge the gap between two vastly different political systems. The legacy of Boba Fett sips survival, shaping the future of the galaxy. The survival of Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit represents more than just a personal triumph. It marks the beginning of his evolution into a galactic leader who shapes the future of the galaxy in ways that had previously seemed unimaginable. Fett's rise to power in Tatooine, his alliances with the Tusken Raiders and Fennec Shand, and his strategic relationships with the New Republic reflect the changing dynamics of power in a galaxy that is still grappling with the consequences of the Empire's fall. Fett's survival speaks to the enduring strength of the Mandalorian spirit and the potential for redemption even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. His ability to adapt and thrive in a galaxy that has been turned upside down by war, conflict, and the collapse of established systems speaks to the resilience of the galaxy's most powerful figures. Fett, once a solitary mercenary driven by personal gain, is now a figure who understands the importance of leadership, alliances, and the role he can play in shaping the future. As the galaxy continues to rebuild in the aftermath of the Empire's fall, figures like Boba Fett will play a crucial role in ensuring that the new era is one of cooperation, balance, and stability. Fett's legacy will not be defined by his past as a bounty hunter or his time in the Sarlacc pit, but by his ability to adapt, lead, and create a new future for himself and those around him. His survival is a symbol of the possibility of change, and his journey represents the larger journey of the galaxy itself, one of resilience, evolution, and the endless possibility for growth, even in the most tumultuous times. As we continue to delve into Boba Fett's survival and its implications for the post-Empire galaxy, it's important to explore the larger narrative themes that emerge from his transformation from a lone bounty hunter to a figure of power and leadership. This shift in Fett's life not only reflects his personal growth, but also echoes the larger galactic shift that was taking place in the aftermath of the Empire's collapse. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit and his subsequent rise to power can be seen as part of a broader, ongoing narrative of redemption, transformation, and survival in a galaxy that has been irreparably scarred by war, conflict, and political upheaval. In the aftermath of the Empire's fall, the galaxy is a place of constant change. The New Republic is trying to rebuild, while the remnants of the Empire continue to fight for their survival, often relying on tactics such as guerrilla warfare and covert operations. At the same time, the criminal underworld is in a state of flux as the structures of power left behind by figures like Jabba the Hutt and the Empire begin to crumble. This shifting political landscape creates an environment where new leaders can rise. Figures like Fett, who despite their checkered pasts are able to capitalize on the vacuum of power and forge new identities. Fett's story is thus part of a larger theme of rebirth and redefinition. His survival in the Sarlacc pit represents a symbolic escape from his past, a past in which he was defined by his identity as a clone of Jango Fett, a bounty hunter for hire, and a mercenary who cared little for anything beyond his next contract. The trauma of surviving the Sarlacc pit forced Fett to reckon with his past and consider what his legacy would be. His decision to take control of Tatooine, establish himself as a leader, and seek redemption signals his refusal to be trapped by his past. Rather than allowing his survival to be a mere accidental or fortuitous escape, Fett embraces it as an opportunity to create meaning in a galaxy that is still struggling to rebuild after the fall of the Empire. The transition from isolation to leadership. Before the Sarlacc, Boba Fett was a figure of isolation and self-sufficiency. He was a lone bounty hunter, a man who trusted few and worked alone. His identity was defined by his armor, his skills, and his reputation as the best in the business. In this sense, he was a man apart, a figure who navigated the galaxy with cold efficiency, completing contracts without considering the long-term consequences of his actions. He was a mercenary, a tool for hire, and his motivations were simple: money, survival, and personal gain. However, after surviving the Sarlacc pit, Fett is forced to reevaluate his approach to life. The experience of being swallowed by the Sarlacc, of being trapped in a slow death over an extended period of time, represents an existential crisis for Fett. The humiliation and vulnerability of this experience lead him to question his previous life and identity. He could no longer define himself purely as a mercenary. He had to find a new purpose, a new role in the galaxy. His survival is not just physical, it is spiritual, as it forces him to confront the idea that he has the opportunity to reshape his future. The key shift in Fett's character is his decision to embrace leadership rather than continuing as an isolated figure. He could have easily returned to his life as a bounty hunter, taking jobs from anyone willing to pay, but instead, he chooses to establish himself as a leader, taking control of Tatooine and the power vacuum left by Jabba the Hutt's death. Fett's leadership is rooted not in sheer violence or intimidation, but in his ability to organize and strategize. His decision to build a new criminal empire, one based on respect, alliances, and stability, signals a major shift in the way power is exercised in the galaxy. Fett understands that in a galaxy still recovering from war, long-term stability cannot be achieved through violence alone. It requires diplomacy, alliances, and the ability to understand the larger political dynamics at play. One of the most notable examples of this shift is Fett's relationship with the Tusken Raiders. Historically, the Tuskens were a marginalized group, often depicted as hostile and violent. They were feared by many in the galaxy and dismissed as uncivilized. However, Fett recognizes the strength and value in the Tuskens, and instead of viewing them as an obstacle to be destroyed, he chooses to work with them. His ability to forge an alliance with the Tuskens is a key moment in his transformation. It represents his willingness to see beyond the surface and understand the strength of other cultures. The Tuskens, in turn, offer him their loyalty and the knowledge of the desert, which proves vital for Fett's rise to power. This marks a stark contrast to his previous life, where he was an isolated figure who relied only on his own skills. Now, Fett is building relationships with others, recognizing that cooperation and mutual respect are essential for survival. Fett's decision to work with Fennec Shand also speaks to this shift in his mindset. Fennec, like Fett, is a bounty hunter, but she also represents a new form of partnership for Fett. They have a shared understanding of the underworld, but their relationship is not just about business, it is about mutual respect and trust. Fennec, who initially viewed Fett as just another mercenary, becomes a key ally in his new life. Their growing partnership is not one built on fear or force, but on the shared understanding that they can survive and thrive together in a galaxy that is still being remade. The role of Boba Fett in shaping galactic power dynamics. Fett's survival also speaks to his ability to adapt to the changing dynamics of power in the galaxy. The Empire had been the dominant force in the galaxy for decades, but its fall marked the end of a centralized, authoritarian regime. The rise of the New Republic brought with it a new hope for galactic peace, but it also highlighted the fractured nature of the galaxy. While the New Republic sought to bring stability to the core worlds, the Outer Rim remained largely outside its control. The power vacuum left by the Empire's collapse created an environment where new figures like Fett could rise to prominence. Fett's approach to leadership and power is shaped by his understanding of this galactic fragmentation. Unlike the Empire, which sought to dominate through sheer force, Fett understands that in the post-Empire galaxy, power must be exercised through subtlety and adaptation. He is not a tyrant or an emperor. He is a strategic leader who understands that lasting control can only be achieved through alliances and mutual respect. This understanding of the political dynamics in the galaxy allows Fett to expand his influence without alienating the groups he is trying to control. His leadership, in many ways, represents the new face of power in the galaxy, one that is defined by cooperation rather than conquest. Fett's leadership is not just about ruling with an iron fist, it is about creating a system in which those under his control can thrive. His dealings with the New Republic, though tentative and strategic, demonstrate his understanding of the necessity of working within the broader galactic political framework. Fett is not a rebel or an anarchist. He is a figure who understands the need for order, even if that order is shaped by his own vision. His survival from the Sarlacc pit, his rise to power, and his growing influence across the galaxy all represent the emergence of a new type of leader, one who is adaptable, pragmatic, and capable of surviving in a galaxy that is still in the process of re-establishing its systems of rule. The legacy of Fett Sip's survival, a symbol of resilience. Boba Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit is not just a story of personal resilience. It is a symbol of the galactic resilience that exists in the aftermath of the Empire's fall. While the galaxy is in a state of flux, figures like Fett show that survival in the new galaxy is not about brute force or military dominance, but about adaptation and the ability to survive amidst chaos. Fett's transformation from a lone bounty hunter to a leader reflects the larger journey of the galaxy itself, one of rebirth, adaptability, and growth. His survival speaks to the power of change and redemption, not only for the individual but for the galaxy as a whole. Boba Fett, once seen as a mere tool for hire, has now become a figure who can shape his own destiny and by extension the destiny of the galaxy. His survival represents the possibility of new beginnings even in the most dire of circumstances. Fett's rise to power is a testament to the endurance of the galactic spirit, one that continues to evolve and adapt even after the fall of the Empire and the crumbling of old power structures. The rise of warlords and mercenaries in a post-Empire galaxy. The galaxy, in the aftermath of the Empire's collapse, is rife with power struggles, as the central authority once wielded by the Empire has evaporated, leaving a vacuum that many seek to fill. The New Republic is a beacon of hope for many, but its influence remains limited, especially in the Outer Rim, where systems are less likely to fall under the control of a central government. The outer regions are chaotic, with criminal syndicates, rogue factions, and independent figures like Boba Fett stepping into the power vacuum. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit reflects his ability to adapt to this new world, one that is not defined by the rigid structures of the Empire, but by independence, strategic alliances, and the need for mutual survival. The days of empires controlled by a single force are over. Now, smaller factions, warlords, and independent leaders are asserting their influence. Fett's rise is indicative of this shift. He is no longer a mere mercenary driven by profit, but a leader with a vision for a new, more organized galaxy, where his influence plays a key role. Fett's strategic alliances with both criminal organizations and local powers demonstrate the new nature of governance in this fragmented galaxy. Whereas the Empire sought to control through force and fear, Fett understands that to thrive in this new political environment, he must engage with multiple factions, create partnerships, and weave connections in a web of influence that transcends simple conquest. His ability to connect with different factions is what will ultimately define his rule. He is not a dictator, but a force of influence, one who uses his knowledge of the galaxy, his reputation, and his adaptability to maintain his position. The broader impact of this rise is seen in the changing nature of galactic politics. Warlords and independent leaders are no longer rogue elements operating on the fringes of the galaxy, but are becoming central players in shaping the post-Empire order. Boba Fett's role in this new era represents a shift away from the centralized power structures that once dominated galactic governance. Instead of relying on imperial dominance, power now stems from alliances, survival instincts, and the ability to adapt to a rapidly changing environment. The Mandalorian legacy and the importance of Boba Fett's survival. Boba Fett's survival also brings attention to the Mandalorian legacy, which is inextricably linked to his identity. As a Mandalorian and the son of Jango Fett, Boba is not just a bounty hunter, but a living representation of a proud and warrior-based culture that has been pushed to the fringes of galactic society. The Mandalorians were once a powerful force in the galaxy, known for their martial prowess and their distinct warrior code. However, over time, they have been marginalized, their culture scattered and their numbers reduced after countless wars and the rise of the Empire. Fett's return to power and his leadership in the criminal underworld signal the potential resurgence of the Mandalorian culture in the post-Empire galaxy. His rise is symbolic of a broader rebirth for the Mandalorians, who have long been defined by their warrior ethos, but who are now grappling with how to preserve their heritage and adapt to the new political and social realities of the galaxy. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc and his subsequent rise is an indication that the Mandalorians, despite their losses, still have a role to play in the galaxy. Through Fett's leadership, they are shaping their future, not just through conquest, but through the creation of alliances and the reconstruction of their legacy. The Mandalorian culture was once defined by war, conquest, and violence. But in the wake of the Empire's fall, it is clear that Fett's approach to leadership reflects a more adaptable and nuanced view of what it means to be Mandalorian. Rather than seeking dominance, Fett seeks to preserve his people's legacy through alliances and survival, using the lessons of the past to adapt to the galaxy's changing power structures. In this sense, Fett's survival is not only a personal triumph, but a cultural one as well. The Mandalorian culture had been nearly wiped out by the wars and the Empire's reign, but Fett's return serves as a reminder that the Mandalorians are not just a people defined by their ability to fight. They are defined by their resilience, their ability to adapt, and their commitment to survival, values that Fett embodies as he continues to evolve into a key figure in the galaxy's complex political system. Boba Fett's legacy. A new model of power in the galaxy. Boba Fett's leadership represents the emergence of a new model of power in the galaxy. The Empire's methods of control, based on tyranny, brutality, and force, are no longer viable in the post-Empire world. The galaxy has changed, and figures like Fett are reshaping the way power is wielded. His rise to power is not marked by brute force, but by strategic alliances, understanding the political landscape, and the ability to adapt to new circumstances. Fett's relationship with the New Republic is also indicative of the evolving nature of galactic power. While the New Republic is struggling to assert control over the galaxy, it recognizes the importance of figures like Fett in maintaining stability. Rather than treating him as an enemy or obstacle, the New Republic is learning to coexist with factions like Fett's, who have the power to effect galactic peace. Fett's interactions with the New Republic reflect a broader trend of cooperation between official governance and independent factions in a galaxy that is still rebuilding from the chaos of the Empire. This shift in power structures also speaks to the growing complexity of leadership in the galaxy. The days of simple authoritarian rule are over, replaced by a new era where alliances, compromise, and strategic thinking are central to success. Fett's leadership, based on respect and diplomacy, reflects this new model of power. His survival from the Sarlacc pit symbolizes his ability to adapt to these new realities, proving that even in a galaxy defined by conflict and struggle, there is room for new kinds of leadership to emerge. Fett's rise is also symbolic of the evolving role of Mandalorians in the galaxy. Once viewed as an isolated and largely irrelevant faction, the Mandalorians, through Fett's leadership, are beginning to reassert themselves as a powerful force in the galaxy. The Mandalorians may no longer be the conquerors they once were, but their influence is once again being felt, this time not through military might, but through alliances and strategic leadership. Fett's survival and rise are emblematic of this cultural resurgence, and his actions speak to the possibility that the Mandalorians can not only survive but thrive in a post-Empire galaxy. The shifting nature of galactic justice. In addition to his rise as a leader, Fett's survival also raises important questions about the nature of justice in a galaxy that has been shaped by the Empire's reign of terror. The Empire's system of control and punishment was based on fear, violence, and absolute obedience. However, in the aftermath of the Empire's fall, the galaxy is looking for new ways to define justice and order. Fett's leadership style is a reflection of this new approach. He is not a ruler who seeks to impose his will on others through terror, but someone who seeks to build stability and respect. His understanding of justice is one that combines compassion, negotiation, and strength. Fett's survival is symbolic of the larger shift in galactic justice, a move away from authoritarianism to a more adaptive, collaborative model. Boba Fett and the post-Empire power struggles. The end of the Empire did not automatically result in a unified galaxy. Rather, the political landscape became increasingly fragmented, with various factions fighting for power. The New Republic represents hope for the galaxy, but its reach and influence are limited, especially in the Outer Rim where warlords, mercenaries, and rogue groups still hold sway. The fractured nature of the galaxy following the fall of the Empire creates opportunities for figures like Boba Fett to rise to power. His survival in the Sarlacc pit speaks to his resilience and adaptability in the face of chaos. In a galaxy where traditional power structures have crumbled, Fett is able to seize control of Tatooine and create a new power base for himself, one that is rooted in his ability to understand and adapt to the shifting political landscape. In many ways, Fett's leadership represents a new model of power in the galaxy, one that is no longer defined by military force and authoritarian rule, but by strategic alliances and the ability to coexist within a fractured political system. While the New Republic is trying to rebuild and restore order, Fett is creating his own form of order in the criminal underworld. By working with local factions, including the Tusken Raiders and Fennec Shand, and engaging in negotiations with the New Republic, Fett demonstrates a level of political sophistication that was once absent in his earlier life as a lone bounty hunter. His ability to adapt to the changing galactic environment, where power is no longer centralized, shows that leadership in the post-Empire galaxy is not about conquest and force, but about adaptation, alliances, and cooperation. The post-Empire galaxy is characterized by instability and fragmentation. There are many factions, including the remnants of the Empire, pirates, criminal syndicates, and warlords, all vying for influence. This lack of centralization has created opportunities for new figures like Fett to step in and carve out their own influence. Fett's rise to power signals the emergence of a new breed of leader, one who is capable of understanding the shifting power dynamics and adjusting his tactics accordingly. Rather than trying to replace the old empire, Fett builds a new empire based on alliances and strategic diplomacy. One of the key aspects of Fett's survival is his ability to recognize the value of cooperation. His partnership with Fennec Shand represents the power of working together toward a shared goal. Fett, who had spent most of his life working alone, now understands that building a lasting legacy requires not only strength and intelligence, but the ability to unite disparate factions. His dealings with the Tusken Raiders, a traditionally hostile and marginalized group, reflect his growing understanding of interpersonal politics. Rather than seeing them as mere obstacles to his power, he views them as potential allies in a galaxy that is defined by diverse cultures and rival factions. Power through diplomacy. Fett sets relationships with the New Republic. Fett's relationship with the New Republic is one of mutual respect and pragmatism. Unlike the Empire, which sought to impose its will through tyranny and force, the New Republic is built on democratic ideals and the goal of creating a more stable and just galaxy. However, the Republic's struggles in asserting control over the Outer Rim make it clear that even a democratic system can't always reach the fringes of galactic society. Boba Fett's role in the galaxy is to maintain a form of order and stability that the New Republic cannot fully provide, particularly in the Outer Rim. By working with the New Republic and acknowledging its influence, Fett secures a place for himself in the larger political system. Although Fett is not a member of the New Republic, his ability to collaborate with them demonstrates the need for pragmatic alliances in the post-Empire galaxy. Fett's influence extends beyond the criminal underworld and into the larger political landscape, as he becomes an intermediary between the New Republic and various criminal factions. His ability to navigate both the criminal world and the political world demonstrates that power in the new galaxy is not just about conquest, but also about the ability to influence and negotiate. Fett's role as a leader in this new system shows that even rogue figures like him can play a crucial role in shaping the future of the galaxy. His relationship with the New Republic also highlights his strategic intelligence. While Fett's power in Tatooine is largely based on his ability to maintain control over the criminal syndicates and his alliances with the Tuskens, he recognizes that his future depends on maintaining a balance of power. By forming a working relationship with the New Republic, Fett ensures that his criminal empire does not come into direct conflict with their governance. This political maneuvering allows him to expand his influence without alienating the larger galactic powers. Fett's survival is thus not just about overcoming the Sarlacc. It is about his ability to navigate the complexities of a galaxy in transition, where the old powers are fading and new leaders must rise. The galactic influence of Boba Fett's empire. Fett's leadership on Tatooine and his growing power base in the galaxy signal a larger trend, the rise of independent leaders in a galaxy that has been forever altered by the fall of the Empire. The traditional imperial system, where power is centralized and controlled by a single authority, has given way to a more distributed system of governance. While the New Republic attempts to establish order, figures like Fett are stepping into the void, offering a new model of leadership that is based on strategic alliances, negotiation, and diplomacy. The criminal underworld plays a central role in this new system, as the galaxy is still rife with chaos and instability. The Hutt cartel, the Mandalorians, and other rogue factions are all vying for power in the Outer Rim, and Fett's ability to navigate these factions allows him to carve out his own influence. His rise reflects a broader shift away from the military might of the Empire toward a more subtle form of power, one that is based on strategic thinking, alliances, and the ability to survive in a rapidly changing galaxy. Fett's criminal empire is not just about ruling with fear, but about creating a sustainable system where those under his influence can thrive. His interactions with the Tusken Raiders and Fennec Shand are crucial to understanding the type of power he is building. Rather than relying on tyranny and intimidation, Fett uses his knowledge of the galaxy's political complexities to establish a form of governance that emphasizes cooperation, loyalty, and mutual respect. His survival in the Sarlacc is a testament to his ability to adapt and shape the future of the galaxy in his image. In conclusion, Boba Fett's rise to power in the galaxy after his survival from the Sarlacc pit reflects the changing nature of leadership and power in a post-Empire galaxy. His ability to form alliances, navigate the criminal underworld, and build a sustainable empire speaks to the growing influence of independent leaders in the aftermath of the Empire's fall. Fett's survival represents not just personal resilience, but a larger galactic shift, where cooperation and adaptation become central to success. The transition from Empire to a new galactic order. In the aftermath of the Empire's fall, the galaxy has been plunged into a period of instability and fragmentation. The New Republic struggles to bring the galaxy back under a unified system of governance. The Outer Rim territories are largely uncontrolled, leaving room for warlords, criminal syndicates, and mercenary groups to rise and take control. These factions are now shaping the future of the galaxy as the New Republic focuses on rebuilding and re-establishing order in the core worlds, but with little reach in the far-flung, more lawless regions. In this environment of chaos and opportunity, Boba Fett's survival is symbolic of the changing nature of leadership in the galaxy. As a figure who has always operated on the margins of society, Fett is well equipped to survive in this new world. His leadership on Tatooine marks a shift from tyranny and domination to adaptation and resilience. Unlike the Empire, which sought to impose its rule through military force and fear, Fett uses strategic alliances and his influence in the criminal world to establish his rule over the desert planet. His approach to leadership reflects a galaxy that is no longer dominated by a single power, but one where the future is shaped by leaders who can navigate the complexities of a divided galaxy. Fett's emergence as a leader in the criminal underworld of Tatooine is representative of the new power structure in the galaxy. With the Empire's destruction, figures like Fett take center stage in filling the power vacuum left by the collapse of central authority. However, Fett's leadership is characterized by strategy and cooperation rather than brute force. His rise does not represent a return to the militaristic control of the Empire, but rather the beginning of a new era of independent leaders who define their power not by force, but by their ability to adapt to the shifting tides of galactic politics. Fett's leadership, beyond violence and fear, The most significant aspect of Fett's leadership is his ability to forge alliances and build connections. Where Jabba the Hutt ruled through brutality, exploitation, and fear, Fett chooses a different path. His decision to work with the Tusken Raiders, a traditionally hostile and marginalized group, is a prime example of his evolving leadership style. Fett does not treat them as a threat to be eradicated, but rather as a group to be understood and respected. He recognizes their strength and knowledge of the land, and in return the Tusken Raiders offer him their loyalty and support. This marks a profound shift in the way Fett approaches power. Whereas in his earlier years, he would have viewed the Tuskens as an obstacle to his goals, he now views them as potential allies. This diplomatic approach to power is also reflected in his relationship with Fennec Shand, a fellow bounty hunter who becomes an invaluable ally in his rise to power. Fett's partnership with Fennec is built on mutual respect, shared goals, and loyalty. Unlike his past relationships, which were largely transactional and fleeting, Fett's bond with Fennec is more personal and strategic. Fennec becomes an important figure in Fett's vision for the future, a future not built on violence but on stability and cooperation. Together, they begin to form a team that exemplifies Fett's growing understanding of leadership. This shift in his character is a reflection of the galaxy's evolution, where the ability to unite disparate groups becomes more valuable than the ability to conquer. Fett's growing understanding of alliances is also reflected in his dealings with the New Republic. While Fett has no love for the Republic's ideals, he understands that their influence is necessary in the galaxy's recovery. His ability to negotiate with the Republic while still maintaining his independence speaks to his strategic intelligence. He realizes that cooperation, even with a governing body he does not fully support, is vital for his own survival and the stability of his empire. This pragmatic approach to politics and leadership marks the new face of power in the galaxy, one that is not about confrontation and domination, but about finding common ground and working within the larger framework of galactic politics. Fett's criminal empire, a new model of governance. At the heart of Fett's rise to power is his criminal empire, not just as a means of wealth, but as a model for governance in a galaxy that has long been fractured and in need of stability. Fett's leadership over Tatooine and the surrounding regions is not defined by the tyrannical rule of Jabba or the authoritarianism of the Empire, but by his ability to create a system in which different factions and groups can coexist. He does not seek to destroy the criminal organizations on Tatooine. Instead, he integrates them into his vision for a new order. The empire he builds is based on cooperation, understanding, and mutual benefit, rather than fear and subjugation. Fett's understanding of criminal governance is rooted in the realities of the post-Empire galaxy. With the Empire's destruction, many former criminal factions are left rudderless, lacking central leadership and direction. Fett's rise to power is a response to this void. Rather than simply conquering these factions or destroying them, Fett builds a network that is based on shared interests and resources. His ability to create a unified system in a galaxy where chaos reigns is a testament to his strategic vision and his understanding of the complexities of galactic politics. Fett's criminal empire becomes a model for a new kind of governance, one where power is not based solely on force, but on the ability to create alliances and negotiate within a fractured political system. The Tusken Raiders, Fennec Shand, and the various criminal syndicates are all part of Fett's vision for the future of his empire. Instead of simply imposing his will on them, he integrates them into his larger vision, recognizing the value they each bring to the table. This inclusive approach is a far cry from the Empire's rule, which sought to dominate and subjugate. Fett's leadership style is a new model of governance in a galaxy that has been scarred by war and tyranny. It represents a shift from traditional forms of leadership, where force and domination were the primary tools of power, to a more collaborative and strategic approach that values mutual respect and long-term alliances. Boba Fett sips survival, a symbol of galactic resilience. Fett's survival in the Sarlacc pit is more than just a personal triumph. It is a symbol of galactic resilience. In a galaxy defined by conflict, war, and the rise and fall of empires, Fett's survival represents the enduring strength of those who adapt to the changing tides of power. The empire may have fallen, but new leaders are emerging, each with their own vision of what the galaxy can become. Fett's rise to power is emblematic of the galaxy's larger struggle for stability. His survival and subsequent leadership in Tatooine speak to the resilience of not only the Mandalorians, but of the galaxy's ability to rebuild and reshape itself in the face of adversity. Fett's ability to survive, adapt, and thrive in a galaxy that has been torn apart by the Empire, the Rebellion, and countless wars speaks to the larger narrative of resilience in the Star Wars universe. The galaxy, despite its wars and turmoil, continues to evolve and adapt. Fett's story is a reflection of this process, a process where even the darkest figures like him can find new meaning and purpose in a galaxy that has changed beyond recognition. The rebuilding of galactic order. Fett Sif's influence. As the galaxy rebuilds from the destruction of the Empire, Boba Fett's survival and rise to power signal a new way forward, one that bridges the gap between the old world of tyranny and the new world of diplomacy. While the New Republic struggles to establish itself as a central authority, the power vacuum in the galaxy is being filled by figures like Fett, who understand that true power in the post-Empire galaxy is not about conquest and domination, but about adaptability, alliances, and the ability to work with others. Fett's rise is a direct response to the chaos left in the wake of the Empire's collapse. The New Republic is unable to control the Outer Rim and other far-flung regions where criminal activity, warlords, and rogue factions have flourished. The restructuring of the galaxy's political system means that power is no longer centralized in the hands of a single authority like the Empire. Instead, it has fragmented into smaller factions, some with good intentions, like the New Republic, and others with more self-serving goals, like Fett and his criminal empire. Fett, by positioning himself as a power broker in the Outer Rim, becomes a significant player in a galaxy that is still in flux. His rise to power represents a shift in governance. While the Empire was marked by its militaristic control and fear-based rule, Fett's leadership is about strategic manipulation, cultural alliances, and coercion. He knows that his survival is not based solely on brute force, but on the ability to adapt to the changing times. His empire over Tatooine and other territories is defined by a careful balance of power, ensuring his position through alliances, tactical governance, and the ability to survive within the chaotic new political order. Fett's power is rooted in his ability to unite disparate groups, from criminal factions to local powers, in the pursuit of mutual goals. As the galaxy moves forward, Fett's influence in the criminal underworld and his ability to navigate the complexities of galactic politics will shape the new order that emerges. He represents the possibility that criminal figures and leaders who once thrived on self-interest and independence can find ways to work within the larger framework of the galaxy. While the New Republic may represent a move toward democratic governance, Fett's rise suggests that not all power must be centralized or dictatorial. there are alternative systems of rule that can ensure stability even in a fractured galaxy. Boba Fett sits long-term influence on criminal syndicates. Fett's leadership also highlights the long-term changes in how criminal syndicates function in the galaxy. The days of Jabba the Hutt's empire, built on exploitation, terror, and absolute control, are over. Fett's approach to leadership is more strategic, based on cooperation and mutual benefit. He recognizes that the old methods of control, brute force, fear, and oppression, are no longer as effective in the galaxy of the New Republic. The post-Empire galaxy is marked by instability, but it is also an era of new opportunities, where criminal factions must evolve in order to survive. Rather than simply taking over Jabba's criminal empire and continuing the old ways, Fett reshapes it, recognizing that order is not created through fear alone, but through alliances and careful management. His leadership is characterized by the ability to adapt and form new relationships, even with groups once considered adversaries. The Tusken Raiders, for example, were once seen as an obstacle to Fett's control, but he eventually builds an alliance with them, offering them protection in exchange for loyalty. Similarly, his relationship with Fennec Shand transforms from a temporary partnership into a long-term alliance that reinforces his position as a leader. Fett's criminal empire is not just about seizing territory and asserting dominance. It is about building a network of mutual support and collaboration. His ability to balance coercion and cooperation makes him a unique figure in the galaxy, one who can survive and even thrive in a galaxy still recovering from war and tyranny. Fett's empire is not a relic of the old ways, but a new model of criminal governance, one that emphasizes sustainability, alliances, and the ability to adapt to a constantly changing galaxy. The long-term influence of Fett's rise will likely impact the way criminal syndicates function in the post-Empire era. The galaxy is moving away from the traditional methods of rule used by the Empire and criminal factions like Jabba's. Instead, power is now defined by the ability to survive, adapt, and form relationships with others. Fett's leadership marks the beginning of a new era in the criminal underworld, where the days of uncontrolled violence are replaced by strategic and calculated moves. As other criminal factions see the success of Fett's new approach, they may be influenced to adopt similar strategies, further shaping the future of the galactic underworld. Fett's relationship with the New Republic, a complex dance. Fett's relationship with the New Republic is complex and pragmatic. On one hand, he is an outsider, a former enemy of the Republic, and someone who represents the chaotic elements of the galaxy. On the other hand, Fett understands the importance of cooperation with the Republic in order to maintain his position and influence. While the Republic may view Fett as a necessary evil, a powerful figure who can help keep order in the Outer Rim, it is clear that Fett is not easily controlled. He operates on his own terms and will only engage with the Republic when it serves his purposes. This relationship is not defined by loyalty or ideology, but by mutual benefit. Fett does not align himself with the Republic's ideals, but he understands that the Republic's power is something he must acknowledge in order to ensure the survival of his own empire. In this way, Fett serves as a bridge between the old criminal world and the new political order. His willingness to work within the confines of the New Republic's influence demonstrates that power in the galaxy is no longer defined by simply being on one side of the galactic divide. Instead, it is about finding ways to navigate the shifting alliances and forces that exist in a fractured galaxy. The lasting legacy of Boba Fett, a new kind of galactic power. Ultimately, Boba Fett's survival and his rise to power represent a new model of leadership in the galaxy, one that is defined by adaptability, alliances, and the ability to navigate a complex and ever-changing political environment. His leadership in the criminal underworld and his willingness to engage with the New Republic mark the end of an era of unilateral power and the beginning of a new era where power is defined by the ability to adapt, negotiate, and build coalitions. Fett's influence, though deeply rooted in the criminal world, extends far beyond that. His legacy is tied not only to his survival but to the ways in which he reshapes the galaxy's power structures. As the galaxy continues to evolve, figures like Fett will play an increasingly significant role in determining the future of both legitimate and illegitimate forms of governance. Fett's survival from the Sarlacc pit is the beginning of a larger journey, one where the old ways of power are replaced by a more adaptive, collaborative, and resilient approach to leadership and governance. As we conclude our exploration of Boba Fett's survival and his profound transformation into a key leader in the post-Empire galaxy, it's clear that his story is not just one of personal redemption, but also a reflection of the larger shifts in galactic power. Fett's rise from a ruthless bounty hunter to a strategic figure in the criminal underworld and beyond highlights the changing nature of leadership and power in a galaxy that is still grappling with the aftermath of the Empire's fall. His survival in the Sarlacc pit marked the beginning of a new chapter for Fett, not only for his personal journey, but for the galactic system at large. Through his leadership on Tatooine and his ability to form alliances, Fett redefines what it means to wield power. His shift from self-serving mercenary to leader of a stable empire based on respect, cooperation, and strategic thinking reflects a broader trend in the galaxy. The old methods of control based on violence and dominance are being replaced by more adaptive, collaborative models. Fett's criminal empire in Tatooine, based on alliances rather than oppression, symbolizes the future of power in a galaxy that is moving away from centralized tyranny toward a more dispersed, networked form of governance. Moreover, Fett's survival and reclamation of power highlight the emergence of independent leaders who thrive in a galaxy no longer governed by the rigid power structures of the Empire. His relationship with the Tusken Raiders, Fennec Shand, and his calculated interactions with the New Republic show that even figures once defined by isolation and self-reliance can find a place in the new political and social order. Fett's ability to adapt and shape his empire around alliances speaks to the galaxy's capacity to evolve and adapt to the changing times, where cooperation and strategic survival are as essential as force and fear. In essence, Boba Fett's survival represents a larger narrative of resilience, adaptability, and redemption, not just for himself, but for the galaxy itself. It is a testament to the possibility of change, and how even the most unlikely figures can rise to become symbols of transformation in a universe that is in a constant state of flux. Fett's journey from bounty hunter to leader marks a new chapter in the galaxy's ongoing story, one where the old ways of dominance are slowly replaced by new forms of power built on alliances, respect, and the ability to evolve. As Fett's influence continues to grow, his legacy will be remembered as one of redemption, growth, and the power of adapting in the face of overwhelming odds. His survival and leadership show that even in a galaxy shaped by conflict, chaos, and unpredictability, there is always the potential for new beginnings and a chance to redefine what it means to hold power. Fett's story is not just about surviving the Sarlacc, it's about building a legacy that endures, one that shapes the future of the galaxy for years to come.